Hello, welcome to the presentation entitled "The Girl is Looking for a Clever Husband, the Boy for a Beautiful Wife" on stereotypes about women and men in Proverbs. As you can see, as you can learn from the title, the aim of the lecture is to outline the main female and male stereotypes embodied in the content, in the messages of Proverbs. Before I talk about specific stereotypes about women and men that we can find out from Proverbs, let me point out a number of issues that are important to introduce the subject. First of all, we need to remember about a strong link between Proverbs and culture. Proverbs, as bits of wisdom, reflect cultural values. Values which are widely accepted in the society. They contain widely accepted evaluations of human behavior and actions in various situations. As a result of this strong link between Proverbs and culture, on the basis of Proverbs, we can learn a lot about perception of certain social groups. Among others, we can learn about the category of women and men. In relation to genders, it is necessary to point out that for ages, women and men have been placed in different social positions. They have been placed in different patterns of expectations. Man was basically assigned the role of the guardian and provider, whereas a woman was assigned the role of mother and nurturer. What's more, as we all know, men have been generally viewed as tough and strong, tough and hard, and women have been viewed as soft and vulnerable. Obviously, such generalizations lead to the formation of gender stereotypes, which is stressed in point number 5 on the slide. And the final important point to mention at the start, which you can see in point number 5, is that in various cultures of the world, there are many more proverbs about women than about men. Simply put, women's roles and status constitute the core subject of many stereotypes. And the reason for this disproportion could be the fact that men do not provide as much interesting and challenging material as women do, or it could be rather the fact that due to the male-dominated world, folklore scholarship related to women has been kept to the minimum, and that is why it largely excluded women from the picture of civilization's progress. In other words, in the past, women's folk specialties, such as, for instance, needlework or weaving, were left almost unrecorded till recent times, mainly because of the lack of female storytellers. Since they had not their own say, the view of women portrayed in Proverbs was distorted. It was distorted by male prejudice and pervasive bias. And the positive aspects of womanhood were ignored. Not surprisingly, such a state of affairs has largely contributed to the general negative picture of women, in particular the stereotypical attributes related to the female kind. What is also necessary to emphasize at the start is the fact that Proverbs seem to serve as the good material for showing the opposing image of women and men in Proverbs, because, as pointed out by Shipper 2006, the difference between the sexes is not only stressed, but it also takes amazing dimensions. In most cultures, as soon as they are born, children of the two sexes are placed in opposed positions. As if they had nothing else to do, then they are having come into the world in the same place. And indeed, the birth of a boy and that of a girl are far from greeted with the same enthusiasm in many cultures. For instance, according to a Chinese proverb, it's a blessing to bear a son, a calamity to bear a daughter. Another example is, who leaves a son behind is not really dead, which is a Danish proverb, which is a proverb of Danish origin. The fact that proverbs about women mostly contain negative messages is proved by the analysis by the analysis of a proverb specialist, a Romanian scholar, Petrova, in her publication from 2002. Her analysis shows that out of 106 English negative gender proverbs, as many as 83 reveal a stereotypically negative perception of women. And of course, the easiest way of explaining this would be to blame men for creating those humiliating stereotypes. Yet, on second thoughts, one should realize that women have not let men have it all their own way, but rather adopted a kind of a blow-for-blow attitude, making every attempt to strike back with critical remarks, the examples of which will be shown later in the presentation. As was mentioned so far, the image of women in Proverbs is negative for the most part. But let me start with a number of examples where women are presented in a fairly positive way. It was also hinted that the authors of those proverbs, those negative proverbs about women, are their male partners. That is why, on the whole, men tend to stress these features which they either disapprove of or very much expect from women. And as a result of that, in Proverbs, woman is, for instance, expected to be thrifty, that is careful with spending money. As for instance, in the proverb, look for a thrifty woman, even though it may cost you a pair of shoes, which is a Japanese proverb. A woman is also expected to be good, as the English proverb suggests. A good wife and health is a man's best wealth. And with reference to the mentioned characteristics, these are the basic features that are required, mostly required for family life and household maintenance. So, the proverbs, we might say, restrict women to the house and house-related activities. And in this way, of course, they express stereotypical perception of women. What is more, a fairly positive image of women is reflected in proverbs where women are viewed as stubborn and smart. Stubborn and smart in eliminating all life, maybe not all, but life obstacles, which is demonstrated in the proverb, when a woman cooks up a trick, she can outwit 100 men. Or, women are also known for their willpower. For instance, what a girl wants, she gets it. What a girl wants at any price, she gets it. As for the positive image of men and women in Proverbs, it is important to highlight that evidently positive messages are delivered by Proverbs about mothers and grandmothers. Mothers and grandmothers are, in Proverbs, are viewed as the most respected women. They are viewed as the most respected, as the most valuable representatives of humankind. Needless to say, they are known for their, for instance, endless love. They are known for tenderness and attentiveness to children. That is why they are glorified as a divinity. For instance, mother is God number 2, which is an African proverb, or God cannot be everywhere, that's why he created mothers, or God cannot be everywhere, that's why he created grandmothers, which is a proverb of Dutch origin. So these are the proverbs that talk about women in a positive way. But there are also proverbs which talk positively about fathers, though their number is limited in comparison to proverbs about women. The example is, a son should treasure his father's help, which is a proverb of Spanish origin. The role of a grandfather, in turn, is not included in the dictionaries, in the proverb dictionaries which I consulted, though on the internet, actually, there are many quotes about grandfathers, and many of them are indeed positively colored. As it was mentioned before, all women-related proverbs in various languages, many more, a greater number of them, emphasize negative characteristics of women. These are the features that men particularly disapprove of, or simply they do not like them. And indeed, woman is stereotypically described, among others, as talkative, certainly in a negative way. For instance, the strength of woman is in her tongue, which is an Anglo-American proverb. She's also perceived as empty-headed, unintelligent. For instance, woman's intelligence is child's intelligence, a West African proverb. Another example could be women's wisdom arrives after the event. What's more, she's depicted as faithless. For instance, a faithless wife is shipwrecked to a house, a proverb of Roman origin. She's also depicted as tearful. For example, a woman's weapons are her tears. She's also depicted as changeable. Women are as changeable as the wind. It is important to point out in relation to that these are just exemplary negative features that are stressed in proverbs. As the content of many proverbs of various languages from the world shows, there are many more examples of proverbs in which women are presented in a negative way. What we can also discover from proverbs is that female negative features are ignored. They are ignored due to the fact that women are simply needed by men. They are needed by men because, for instance, women are perceived as the foundation upon which the household rests. As illustrated in the proverb, the house does not rest on earth, but on a woman, which is a proverb of Mexican origin. Or another one, a house without a woman is like a body without a soil. In addition to that, although the social system is male-dominated, a man cannot do without a woman. He cannot do without a woman in real-life situations, because in many cases, because it is women who overcome the daily life obstacles. As indicated in the proverb, when Satan is likely to fail, he sends a woman, according to a Hebrew proverb. Or where the devil is powerless, he sends a woman as messenger. What is interesting here is that in such female features are not openly approved by men. They are not approved because of the overwhelming fear that women might wrap men around their finger, manipulate them, for instance, by the usage of tears, and direct them to their needs and expectations. So this is the case in which men must use any means of any possible means to be cautious and to defend against such situation. What else? What we can learn from the messages put across by proverbs is that female manipulation of men might stem from their from women's attractiveness, as reflected by proverbs. Women tend to attract men, or in other words, women, yes, are attractive to men. They attract men because of their physical appearance. As illustrated in the proverb, even an angel cannot resist a beautiful girl. At the same time, having a beautiful and attractive wife is a tricky business. It's an uncertain business from a male perspective. It's tricky because although female beauty and general attractiveness are normally experienced as a pleasure to the male senses and as a source of pride and prestige, a pretty woman is often viewed as endless source of suffering and trouble. Such messages are reflected, for instance, in the proverb, "A beautiful woman never stays with one man," according to an African proverb, or "Pity the man who marries a beautiful woman, until she grows old, fear will not leave him," which is a Spanish proverb. Furthermore, in many proverbs, beauty is usually set against intelligence, and as a rule, beauty is associated with women, whereas intelligence is associated with men. As we can see in the Vietnamese proverb, the girl is looking for a clever husband, the boy for a beautiful wife, which is actually the proverb which appeared in the title of the presentation. And it means that typically men are inclined to look for beauty, whereas women tend to look for intelligence, of course, in their partners-to-be, which certainly shows stereotypical perception of genders. Moreover, as a sign of beauty, attractive long hair has also been stereotypically associated with the alleged lack of brain in women. As demonstrated in the proverb of the Spanish origin, women have long hair but a short mind. So far, the subject of women in proverbs has been described in quite a lot of details. Let me now focus on men. Men depicted in the messages of proverbs. So first of all, it is necessary to stress that male sex, generally speaking, appears much less frequently in proverbs. There are simply not many proverbs about men in comparison with women. So there are not many proverbs about men, but where the male sex appears, men tend to be characterized by positive features, and the image of men in comparison with women is a favorable one. Such a gender opposition is demonstrated, for instance, in the proverb, "A man of straw is better than a woman of gold." This is the proverb that certainly puts men in a favorable light, and it depreciates women. But thanks to the increasing overall awareness of the genders equality fight, actually it seems to stress such male characteristics as chauvinism and egocentrism. In addition to that, there are proverbs in different languages which emphasize, among others, masculine intelligence, toughness, and action. For instance, thoughts are male, words are female, according to an Italian proverb, or words are female and deeds are macho, which is a Portuguese proverb. So these are the proverbs which unambiguously describe men as intelligent and action-oriented, whereas women are depicted as talkative and unintelligent. Yes, as we could see, women experienced various humiliating stereotypes in the content of paremias. Nevertheless, what is interesting to note is the fact that in the contemporary world, we can notice some signs of a paradigm shift. Paradigm shift, of course, in gender issues. That is, some slight changes in the way of thinking about women and men. And importantly, modern proverbs and anti-proverbs, that is, proverbs transformations, reflect the discussed change. And indeed, upon a closer scrutiny, one can notice a few tendencies in the message of proverbs. Messages which can serve as linguistic evidence for the paradigm shift in gender issues. For instance, in collections of modern proverbs and anti-proverbs, women do have their proverbs about men, which was different in the case of traditional proverbs, where mostly proverbs about women were created. Yet, what is observed is the fact that in those modern proverbs, women talk about their male partners in an ironic light. For instance, men are like buses. If you miss one, another will come along. That's the Anglo-American proverb. In addition to that, some modern proverbs and anti-proverbs referring to women are indeed positively loaded. For instance, a woman's place is any place she wants to be, which is an anti-proverb based on a traditional proverb, a woman's place is in the home, which certainly restricted women to the house and house-related activities, and that is why it, of course, presented a sexist attitude towards women. Another example is a modern Anglo-American proverb: a career girl would rather bring home the bacon than fry it, which indicates that men are slowly losing their traditional dominance within society, and women frequently take central stage both within the household and in the workplace, thereby challenging the rigid traditional gender roles. What else? Some modern proverbs exist in an identical or similar wording for a woman and for a man. The example of such a tendency is: a man without a woman is like a fish without a bicycle, and a woman without a man is like a fish without a bicycle. Notably, the latter proverb, that is, a woman without a man is like a fish without a bicycle, declares the independence of women from men, emphasizing that it's entirely normal for a woman not to get married, and by doing so, she will not become an object of ridicule or pity. Yes, and finally, a number of concluding remarks which may be formulated. As it results from our discussion, first of all, the stereotypical image, the stereotypical features attributed to women and attributed to men and encoded in proverbs tend to form two different pictures of males and females. Second of all, when we consider proverbs from many languages in the world, it must be stated that proverbs about women very much preponderate over the number of proverbs about men. Otherwise speaking, there's a greater number of proverbs about women than about men. In addition to that, as we could see, the number of women-related proverbs talking about stereotypically negative features is much greater than those which emphasize a positive image of women. In turn, the male sex is not so common in the proverbial messages. It simply appears much less frequently. But when it does, where it occurs, men tend to be characterized by positive features, such as it was mentioned a moment ago. Men are characterized by masculine intelligence, action, and toughness. And the final point is that we may speak of various encouraging changes in modern proverbs and anti-proverbs, referring certainly to both sexes. But the stereotypical male and female social roles and status are so deeply rooted in tradition that the desired gender quality will not be instant. But still, proverbs and their messages make us aware not only of the way of the impact that they have on us, but also in the ways in which we can change our lives as men and women today. And the conclusion is that the stereotypical image of both men and women has remained basically unchanged for many centuries, only to recently experience a stage of transition into gender equality. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope you enjoyed the lecture and you could learn some interesting facts about stereotypical perception of female and male encoded in proverbs.